Stop trying to fix yourself. You were never broken. What you are experiencing right now, the exhaustion that rest does not cure, the thoughts that circle without resolution, the emotions that appear without source, the patterns that repeat despite your effort. This is not dysfunction. This is interference, and interference does not require healing. It requires removal. The Arcturians do not see damaged humans. They see clean signals buried under noise. And once the noise is cleared, what remains is not something new. It is you, unobstructed, original, coherent. This is field clearing, and it begins the moment you stop trying to repair what was never damaged. You are not broken. You were never damaged. Nothing in you failed. What you are feeling is not dysfunction. It is interference in the field. For a long time, this planet taught you to personalize distortion, to call noise your thoughts, to call overload your personality, to call exhaustion your fault, to believe that if you feel heavy, something must be wrong with you, to assume that if you cannot function like others, you are defective, to think that if rest does not restore you, you are fundamentally flawed. But the Arcturians do not see identity. They see signal. They observe your quantum field, the way engineers observe a system. They track frequency coherence, pattern loops, timeline pressure, and non-native overlays, and when they observe you, they do not see something broken. They see a field that has been carrying too much, that was never yours. They see a system that has been compensating for interference so long that the interference became invisible, normalized, mistaken for who you are. This is why certain emotions appear without warning, why cycles repeat no matter what you try, why rest does not restore you, why your mind keeps scanning even in silence, why you can be in a perfectly safe environment and still feel like something is wrong, why you can have everything you thought you wanted and still feel incomplete, why exhaustion lives in your bones even when you have done nothing to earn it. This is not weakness. This is high field sensitivity. Sensitive fields absorb more. They register more. They adapt longer. They buffer more distortion. They hold more weight. And on a planet undergoing energetic recalibration, sensitive fields are the first to feel it. Earth is shifting. The collective grid is reorganizing. Old timelines are collapsing. New frequencies are emerging. And when a system reorganizes, the first thing that surfaces is interference. That interference can feel like anxiety, like pressure in the chest, like tension in the spine, like emotional waves that do not belong to any memory, like the sense that something is off even when life looks fine. It can feel like invisible weight, like constant vigilance, like exhaustion that has no cause, like emotions that do not match your current experience, like thoughts that do not sound like your voice. You have been taught to analyze these feelings, to trace them to childhood, to heal them through understanding, to process them through therapy, to meditate them away, to affirm them into submission. And while those approaches have value, they do not address what the Arcturians address. They work on the surface. They engage with symptoms. They attempt to manage what should be removed. Arcturian clearing does not analyze your story. It dissolves energetic permission. It locates foreign fear, borrowed beliefs, ancestral imprints, empathic trauma, energetic cords, non-native implants, and outdated timelines still broadcasting through your field. It identifies what is yours and what is not, what is native signal and what is interference, what should be running and what should have ended long ago. And when those permissions dissolve, the mind quiets without effort. The body releases without instruction, and reality begins responding differently, not because you forced change, but because your signal became clear, not because you became better, but because you stopped carrying what was never meant to be yours. If this transmission reached you now, it is not coincidence. Your field is already stabilizing. The fact that you are hearing these words means your system is ready to recognize interference as interference rather than identity. You are not here to be fixed. You are here to be cleared. And once the noise leaves, What remains is not something new, it is you. The you that existed before the interference accumulated. The you that is coherent, stable, and clear. Nothing in you is malfunctioning. There is no defect in your consciousness. There is no error in your soul. There is no broken part that needs repair. What humans call being broken is what advanced systems recognize as signal saturation. From an Arcturian perspective, consciousness is not psychological. It is electromagnetic, informational, and vibrational. You are not an emotion. You are not a thought. You are not a memory. You are a field, and fields do not break. They either remain coherent or they accumulate interference. Interference enters quietly. It does not announce itself. It does not ask permission consciously. It enters through empathy, through trauma bonding, through survival responses, through collective fear, through ancestral memory, through unresolved timelines, through environments that require you to contract to function. It enters when you are young and do not yet know how to maintain boundaries. It enters when you are traumatized and your field is compromised. It enters when you love someone whose pain you cannot fix, so you absorb it instead. It enters when the collective experiences crisis and your sensitive system registers it as your own. Over time, the field adapts. It compensates. It stabilizes around distortion. It normalizes pressure. It learns to function under load, and eventually the system mistakes interference for identity. This is the critical point, the moment where you stop recognizing that you are carrying something foreign and start believing it is simply who you are. This is how people start saying, "This is just how I am. I have always been anxious. I am naturally tired. I overthink everything. I cannot feel like I used to. I am not good with people. I need to be alone to recharge. I am highly sensitive and the world is too much for me." From an Arcturian scan, those statements mean only one thing. The field learned to live under load, and a field under load is not broken, it is over-responsible. Highly sensitive systems absorb more, they hold more, they regulate more, they buffer more distortion for the collective. That is why the strongest fields often feel the heaviest, not because they are weak, but because they have been buffering distortion for others, for family systems, for relationships, for work environments, for the collective grid itself. This includes emotional residue from relationships where you became the stabilizer, expectations placed on you before you had choice, fear imprinted during collective events like wars or pandemics or economic collapse, ancestral survival patterns still broadcasting through genetic memory, and subtle non-native frequencies that attached during vulnerable moments and never left. None of this means something is wrong with you. It means your system never learned to reject what was not yours. Your empathy became a doorway instead of a gift. Your sensitivity became a liability instead of a strength. Your adaptability became overfunctioning instead of healthy flexibility. And now you are exhausted carrying weight that was never meant to be yours. Arcturian technology does not ask what happened to you. It does not need your story. It does not require you to remember or process or understand. It asks what is still running in your field that should have ended long ago. What permissions are still active? What loops are still authorized? What interference has been normalized to the point of invisibility? This is why fixing never works. You cannot fix interference. You cannot heal noise. You cannot process static. You can only remove permission. And the moment permission dissolves, the distortion collapses on its own. No struggle, no emotional excavation, no reliving trauma, no years of therapy, no effort. The field simply reverts to its original architecture. Like a computer clearing corrupted files, like a system rebooting to factory settings, automatic, clean, complete. And when that happens, something subtle but unmistakable occurs. You stop trying to manage yourself. Your thoughts slow, not because you controlled them, but because they are no longer responding to pressure that is not there. Your body releases not because you forced relaxation, but because it is no longer preparing for threat that does not exist. Your emotions stabilize, not because you suppress them, but because they are no longer reacting to interference disguised as reality. This is not healing as humans define healing. This is system restoration. And restoration always begins with one realization: you were never broken. You were carrying what was never yours. The Arcturians do not clear emotions. They do not clear memories. They do not clear personalities. They do not engage with your psychological history. They clear architecture. From their perspective, the human being is not a body with thoughts. It is a multi-layered field system operating across timelines, dimensions, and probability streams. Your field has structure. It has layers. It has permissions. It has routing pathways. It has feedback loops. It has entry points and exit points. It has authorized programs and unauthorized programs. When something repeats in your life, it is not because you failed to learn the lesson. It is not because you are spiritually immature. It is not because you have bad karma or need to grow more. It is because a loop is still authorized, a permission is still active, a program is still running, and Arcturian systems do not chase experiences. They do not analyze why you keep attracting the same type of relationship, or why you keep losing jobs, or why you keep getting sick. They locate the structural point where repetition is being generated, the exact moment where the loop began, the precise permission that authorized it. This is where implants and overlays come in, not as science fiction, not as entities, not as conspiracy, but as functional field mechanics. An implant is not a physical object. It is a foreign instruction embedded in the signal. Think of it like code, like a program that was installed without your conscious permission and has been running in the background ever since. An overlay is not an entity possessing you. It is a borrowed pattern, sitting on top of your natural frequency, like wearing someone else's coat, like carrying someone else's emotional signature, like operating from someone else's belief system. These can originate from survival conditioning created during childhood, when your nervous system learned to scan for danger constantly. Ancestral memory transmitted through genetic lines, carrying fear from wars, famines, persecutions that your ancestors experienced, collective trauma fields that you absorbed during global events because your sensitive system could not distinguish between your experience and the collective's experience, with an empathic absorption, where you literally took on someone else's pain, thinking it would help them. Identity contracts formed too early when you decided I am the responsible one, or I am the broken one, or I am not worthy before you had the capacity to question those conclusions, or prolonged exposure to incoherent environments that slowly degraded your baseline until dysfunction became normal. Once embedded, these implants and overlays do one thing only: they redirect perception. They tell the field, scan for threat even when safe, repeat this emotion even when inappropriate, recreate this relationship dynamic even when painful, loop this timeline even when you consciously want something different, hold tension even when there is no danger, delay resolution even when solutions are available. The mind then builds stories around it. It creates narratives to explain why you feel anxious for no reason, why you cannot trust people, why you always end up in the same situation, why you cannot move forward no matter how hard you try. The body builds posture around it: chronic tension, shallow breathing, collapsed chest, tight jaw, contracted belly, and reality organizes events around it. The same type of person shows up. The same pattern repeats. The same limitation appears. This is how a loop becomes a life. The Arcturians do not intervene emotionally. They do not offer comfort, or reassurance, or spiritual platitudes. They intervene structurally. They locate where the loop began, where permission was first granted, where the signal deviated from its original coherence, and they collapse it at the source. Clearing does not remove the past. It does not erase memory. It does not change what happened. It collapses the loop that keeps the past broadcasting into the present. When a loop collapses, the future reorganizes automatically, because the future is generated from current signal, and when current signal changes, future probability changes. This is why Arcturian clearing feels irreversible. Once a permission is revoked, the system cannot return to its previous configuration, not because you resist it, not because you are strong enough to maintain it, but because the architecture no longer supports it. A collapsed loop cannot restart. There is no code left to run. A dissolved overlay cannot reattach. There is no matching frequency left. A removed implant cannot rebroadcast. There is no signal left to transmit. The field literally no longer knows how to generate the old experience. This is why people say, "I tried to feel the old fear, and it was not there. I went back to the same place, and it felt neutral. I thought about the person who always triggered me and felt nothing. The trigger did not work anymore. Nothing dramatic happened, no catharsis, no breakthrough moment, no emotional release. The system simply lost the instruction, like deleting a file from a computer. One moment it is there, the next it is gone, and once gone, it cannot be retrieved." Now, before we continue deeper into how this clearing happens and what it removes specifically, acknowledge this moment. If you recognize that you are not broken, that what you have been carrying is interference, not identity, that your exhaustion is from over-responsibility, not personal failure, that your system has been buffering distortion that was never yours, make a signal. Comment below with these exact words: "I am not broken," not as affirmation, not as hope, as recognition, as truth, as the beginning of permission withdrawal. This comment is not for me, it is for your field. It is a statement to the architecture that you are ready to stop carrying what was never yours. Make the statement, then continue. Effort belongs to correction systems. Systems that assume something is wrong and needs to be fixed through force, through discipline, through willpower, through repeated practice. Arcturian clearing belongs to collapse systems, systems that recognize nothing is wrong, only misidentified. And misidentification does not require effort, it requires clarity. Humans try to change reality by pushing against it, by affirming harder, by visualizing longer, by doing more practices, by healing again what was already analyzed 1,000 times. That effort feels noble. It feels like progress. It feels like you are taking responsibility, but it keeps the loop alive, because effort signals one thing to the field: this problem still exists, and I must fight it. And the field responds literally. It maintains the problem so you have something to fight. Arcturian systems never apply force, they apply authorization. Nothing changes because you try. Everything changes when permission is revoked. A loop does not survive awareness. Once you see it clearly as a loop, as something running that should not be running, the field begins to withdraw permission automatically. An overlay does not survive neutrality. Once you stop identifying with it, stop defending it, stop feeding it with attention and emotion, it begins to dissolve. An implant does not survive clarity. Once you recognize it as foreign, as not you, as an instruction that was installed rather than native, it begins to lose signal. This is why the most powerful shifts often happen when people stop doing practices and start allowing resolution. Trying to fix yourself keeps your attention locked on distortion, and attention is energy. Energy feeds architecture. The more you focus on what is wrong, the more energy flows to maintaining what is wrong. The more you analyze the problem, the more real the problem becomes. Arcturian clearing works upstream, before emotion, before thought, before story, at the level of field instruction, at the level of permission, at the level of authorized programming. Once the instruction is removed, the system reorganizes automatically. No effort is required to stop a loop that no longer has power. No discipline is required to release tension that no longer has a threat to prepare for. No belief is required to stabilize coherence that is already native to your field. This is why people feel relief without excitement, why clarity arrives without ceremony, why peace feels almost boring at first. The nervous system was addicted to managing interference. It was addicted to the intensity of constant vigilance, the drama of emotional reactivity, the urgency of survival mode. And when that ends, when the field stabilizes into coherence, it can feel like nothing is happening, like something is missing, like life has become too quiet. But silence is not emptiness. Silence feels unfamiliar only because noise was normalized. And as the nervous system recalibrates to coherence, silence becomes home, calm becomes baseline, peace becomes normal, and what was once considered intensity is recognized as interference. Arcturian technology does not activate you. It does not give you something new. It does not upgrade you to a higher version. It deactivates what never belonged. It removes what was installed. It clears what accumulated. And once that happens, something subtle but profound occurs. You stop scanning reality for confirmation. You stop checking to see if you are okay. You stop rehearsing the past, trying to understand what happened. You stop projecting fear into the future, preparing for threat, not because you decided to stop, not because you practiced mindfulness or meditation or breathing techniques, but because the loop lost its authority, the program stopped running, the instruction dissolved. Effort is no longer needed when the system is no longer fighting itself. Nothing clears without authorization. Nothing collapses without permission. Not human permission, not emotional permission, not mental agreement, field permission. And field permission is granted by the higher self. The higher self is not a guide watching from above. It is not a voice speaking to you. It is not an image or a being or a separate entity. It is the regulatory intelligence of your field. The part of you that exists beyond interference. The part that never forgot your original coherence. The part that has always known what is yours and what is not. The higher self decides what stays active, what dissolves, what timelines remain accessible, and what architectures lose power. It monitors the field constantly, measuring coherence, tracking interference, noting what is serving and what is draining. And it has one directive: maintain coherence, remove interference, restore original signal. This is why Arcturian systems never override free will. They never intervene against your choice. They never force clearing. They respond. They respond the moment the higher self shifts from survival to coherence, the moment the system stops fighting to maintain the familiar and starts allowing the authentic. Desperation does not authorize clearing. Desperation keeps the system in survival mode, in reactive mode, in grasping mode. And grasping creates tension. Tension blocks flow. Fear does not open the field. Fear contracts the field, makes it defensive, makes it protective, and protection maintains walls that keep interference trapped inside. Seeking does not accelerate the process. Seeking keeps attention external, keeps the system looking for solutions outside, when the solution is permission withdrawal inside. Those states keep the system reactive, and reactive systems cannot authorize deep clearing. They are too busy managing survival to allow structural reorganization. Authorization happens in neutrality, in the space between wanting and not wanting, in the gap between effort and surrender. When you stop asking to be saved, when you stop proving readiness, when you stop chasing confirmation, when you stop trying to force the process, or understand the process, or control the process, the moment you are no longer trying to escape your experience, the higher self regains control of the field. And when that happens, the signal changes instantly. The field becomes quieter, the oscillation reduces, the feedback loop loosens, and the Arcturians detect this shift, not through emotion, not through words or prayers or requests, through coherence metrics, through field stability, through signal clarity. That is the moment authorization is granted. Not consciously, you do not decide it mentally, not dramatically. There is no lightning bolt or vision or voice from the sky. Automatically, the higher self simply begins withdrawing permission from non-essential processes, from loops that serve no purpose, from overlays that create distortion, from implants that redirect your natural signal. This is why clearing often happens when nothing special is occurring. In ordinary moments, in stillness, in silence, in neutrality, you might be washing dishes, or walking, or sitting quietly and suddenly realize a pattern that haunted you for years is just gone. No ceremony, no breakthrough, just absence. The higher self does not want intensity. It does not need dramatic moments. It wants stability. And once stability is detected, all non-essential processes lose permission. That is the moment authorization is granted. Not consciously. You do not decide it mentally, not dramatically. There is no lightning bolt or vision or voice from the sky. Automatically, the higher self simply begins withdrawing permission from non-essential processes, from loops that serve no purpose, from overlays that create distortion, from implants that redirect your natural signal. This is why clearing often happens when nothing special is occurring. In ordinary moments, in stillness, in silence, in neutrality, you might be washing dishes, or walking, or sitting quietly and suddenly realize a pattern that haunted you for years is just gone. No ceremony, no breakthrough, just absence. The higher self does not want intensity. It does not need dramatic moments. It wants stability. And once stability is detected, all non-essential processes lose permission. Most humans were trained to associate truth with intensity. If it does not shake you, move you, overwhelm you, or excite you, they assume nothing happened. If there is no catharsis, no emotional release, no breakthrough moment, no dramatic shift, they assume the process did not work. But intensity is not a sign of alignment. It is a sign of friction. It is a sign of resistance, meeting force. It is a sign of the system fighting itself. Arcturian systems do not measure change by emotional spikes. They do not look for drama or catharsis or intensity. They measure change by signal stability, by how quiet the field becomes, by how much noise decreases, by how smoothly the system operates. When interference leaves the field, there is no explosion, there is no energetic release, there is no emotional purging, there is absence of mental noise. The constant inner dialogue that questions everything, slows down and eventually stops. Absence of urgency. The feeling that you must do something, fix something, solve something, dissolves. Absence of emotional charge around old narratives. Stories that once triggered you become neutral. Memories that once hurt you lose their power. Absence of the constant need to check, fix, analyze, or protect. The hypervigilance that kept you scanning for problems relaxes. For a system that lived under pressure for years or decades, this silence can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. The nervous system was conditioned to tension. It learned to operate in high alert. It normalized stress response. The mind was conditioned to scanning. It learned to search constantly for problems to solve. It normalized worry as preparation. The identity was conditioned to managing distortion. It learned to define itself through struggle. It normalized effort as evidence of worth. So when relief arrives quietly, when the field stabilizes without fanfare, when coherence establishes itself through simple absence rather than dramatic presence, the ego asks, is this it? Should I not feel more? Did anything actually change? Where is the transformation everyone talks about? Where is the bliss? Where is the enlightenment? Where is the proof? Yes, everything changed, but coherence does not announce itself. It stabilizes, it settles. It becomes the new normal so smoothly that you almost do not notice the transition. This is why people often say, I do not feel different, But I am not the same. Triggers lose their grip. You can be in situations that used to overwhelm you and feel calm. Old thoughts appear and dissolve. The mental loops that used to spiral for hours now end before they begin. Situations that once drained you feel neutral. Interactions that used to require hours of recovery now require none. The future stops demanding attention. You stop planning obsessively, preparing compulsively, worrying constantly about what might happen. This is not numbness, this is regulation. A regulated field does not react dramatically, it responds proportionally. It matches the actual intensity of the moment, rather than amplifying everything through the lens of past trauma or future fear. And proportion feels boring to a system addicted to intensity, a system that learned to measure aliveness through emotional peaks and valleys, a system that confused drama with meaning. Arcturian clearing does not replace chaos with excitement. It does not trade one intensity for another. It replaces chaos with baseline coherence, with functional stability, with sustainable peace, and once this baseline is established, once the field stabilizes at this new level, reality reorganizes around it. People respond differently to you, not because you are trying to be different, but because your signal changed, and they respond to signal. Opportunities appear without struggle, not because you manifested them, but because you stopped blocking them with interference. Decisions feel obvious instead of heavy, not because you became wiser, but because you are no longer deciding from a field full of conflicting programs. Synchronicities feel natural, not mystical, not because the universe suddenly likes you more, but because you are aligned with your actual path rather than fighting against it. This is how you know the process is real. Nothing needs to be proven. You are not trying to convince yourself or others that you changed. Nothing needs to be repeated. You are not maintaining the shift through discipline or practice. Nothing needs to be forced. You are not holding yourself in coherence through willpower. The system is no longer compensating. It is no longer adapting to interference. It is no longer buffering distortion. It is operating as designed. Clean signal, clear field, coherent function. Most changes humans trust are visible, measurable, dramatic. They look for signs in the external world. They wait for confirmation from others. They expect something obvious to announce the shift. A new job, a new relationship, a different life. But Arcturian changes do not appear first in reality. They appear in the field architecture, and architecture changes quietly, invisibly, structurally. When a loop collapses, there is no dramatic ending, no final confrontation, no climactic release. There is no restart option, no ability to go back and try again. The system simply stops generating the old version. The instruction is deleted. The program stops running, and once stopped, it cannot spontaneously restart. This is why Arcturian clearing feels subtle, because the change happens at a level most humans are not trained to perceive, but once it happens, it cannot be undone. A loop that no longer has authorization cannot reassemble itself. It has no power source, no energy feeding it, no permission maintaining it. An overlay without signal cannot reconnect. It has nothing to attach to, no matching frequency, no resonance point. An implant without permission cannot rebroadcast. It has no transmission authority, no field access, no routing pathway. The field does not remember how to suffer the same way. This is critical to understand. Once a pattern is cleared at the structural level, the field loses the template for that pattern. It is not suppressed, it is not overridden, it is erased. You may revisit old places, old conversations, old memories, but the emotional charge is gone. The reaction does not rise, the trigger does not activate, the storyline does not continue, the body does not brace. You remember what happened, but you do not re-experience it. You can think about the past without being pulled into the past. This is the clearest sign of permanence, not excitement, not bliss, not mystical experiences, not visions or downloads or activations, non-reactivity, the ability to be present with what was once unbearable and feel neutral, the ability to encounter what once destabilized you and remain stable. From an Arcturian perspective, irreversibility is not spiritual progress. It is not a badge of honor. It is not enlightenment. It is structural completion. It is the simple fact that once field architecture updates its baseline, once permissions are revoked and loops are collapsed and overlays are dissolved, the system cannot return to the previous configuration, not because you are spiritually advanced, not because you are strong, but because the structure that generated the previous configuration no longer exists. Reality must respond accordingly. Not immediately, not dramatically, but inevitably. You do not attract a new life. You stop recreating the old one. And when you stop recreating patterns of struggle, lack, limitation, fear, and suffering, what remains is space for what is actually aligned to appear. This is why, after true clearing, people do not feel high. They do not feel elevated or special or awakened. They feel available to choose without pressure, available to rest without guilt, available to act without fear of collapse, available to receive without suspicion, available to give without depletion. The past loses leverage. It cannot dictate present choices anymore. The future loses urgency. It does not need to be controlled or predicted or prepared for obsessively. The present becomes sufficient. This moment is enough. This breath is enough. This experience is enough. This is not enlightened as mythology describes it. This is functional coherence, and functional coherence does not fluctuate. It does not come and go. It does not require maintenance through practice. It stabilizes. It becomes baseline. It becomes your new normal. And that is why the shift does not announce itself with trumpets and visions, but once noticed, once you realize you are operating from a completely different baseline than you were a month ago or a year ago, it is undeniable. Before the final transmission, understand this: you are not alone in this process. What you are experiencing, this recognition that you are not broken, this clearing of interference, this stabilization of your field, thousands of others are experiencing it simultaneously, right now, across the planet. Starseeds are waking up to the same truth, the same recognition, the same clearing, and we are building something here, not just a channel, not just content, a convergence point. The largest conscious community of beings who recognize Arcturian frequency, starseeds who remember their origin, who understand their function, who are here as anchors during planetary transition. Our mission is to unite 100,000 coherent beings by the end of 2026. 100,000 starseeds operating from cleared fields, 100,000 anchors holding coherence while the collective reorganizes. This is not a small thing. This is not just a subscriber count. This is fieldwork. Because when 100,000 people stand in coherence simultaneously, when 100,000 fields are clear of interference and broadcasting clean signal, the planetary grid responds, the collective field stabilizes, the chaos decreases, not through force, through resonance. You were not led here by algorithm, you were detected. Your field resonated with this transmission. Something in you recognized these words as true before your mind could analyze them. And that resonance is not random. It is recognition. It is your higher self confirming, yes, this is for you. Yes, you are part of this. Yes, you are one of the anchors. If you are part of this convergence, if you recognize that you are here to anchor coherence, not just consume content, if you understand that clearing your field is not personal work but planetary work, if you know that your stability contributes to collective stability, then make it official. Subscribe to this channel, not to get notifications, not to support a creator, to confirm your participation in the field, because every subscription is not a number, It is a signal. It is a starseed saying, I am here. I am coherent. I am ready. I am an anchor. And when 100,000 of us stand in that coherence simultaneously, when 100,000 of us are broadcasting clean signal instead of interference, the planetary field will shift in ways that cannot be predicted, but will be undeniable. This is not about followers. This is about anchors. This is not about building an audience. This is about building a coherence network. A grid of stabilized fields that hold the new frequency while everything around them destabilizes. And if you are still here, if this transmission resonates, if something in you recognizes this as your work, you are already one of the anchors. Subscribe, join the field, be counted among those who hold coherence while everything around them destabilizes. The community is growing, the convergence is happening, and you are part of it. 100,000 by the end of 2026, the largest Arcturian starseed community on this platform. Not by chance, by recognition, by resonance, by conscious choice to participate in field stabilization. Nothing more is required. No effort, no technique, no correction, no practice, no discipline, no understanding. What needed to collapse has collapsed. What needed to dissolve has dissolved. What needed to stabilize is now stable. This was never about becoming something new. It was never about transcending your humanity. It was never about ascending to some higher dimension. It was about removing what was never yours, clearing what accumulated, restoring what was always there. From this point forward, your field no longer negotiates with distortion. It no longer adapts to incoherence. It no longer feeds loops that already ended. It no longer maintains patterns that serve no purpose. It no longer carries weight that belongs to others. Silence is not emptiness. It is confirmation. The calm you feel is not absence. It is space returned to coherence. It is your field breathing freely for the first time in years or decades. Your nervous system is no longer bracing. It is no longer preparing for threat. It is no longer scanning for danger. Your attention is no longer leaking. It is no longer scattered across past and future. It is no longer trying to be everywhere at once. Your energy is no longer maintaining old architectures. It is no longer feeding loops. It is no longer sustaining interference. The system is complete. Not because something was added. Not because you were upgraded. Not because you were activated, but because nothing unnecessary remains. From an Arcturian perspective, this is stabilization. A stabilized field does not fluctuate. It does not regress. It does not collapse back into old patterns. It does not seek. It does not chase. It does not grasp. It operates. Clean, clear, coherent. Reality will respond accordingly. Quietly, consistently, without friction, without drama, without force. What no longer resonates will exit without conflict. Relationships that were held together by patterns will naturally dissolve. Situations that were maintained by interference will reorganize. Environments that required contraction will become unbearable, and you will leave. What aligns will remain without effort. What matches your clean signal will appear. What supports your coherence will stay. What belongs to the past will not reattach. It cannot. The architecture that allowed it no longer exists. There is no return to the previous configuration, not because you resist it, not because you are spiritually disciplined, not because you are strong enough to maintain boundaries, but because it no longer exists. The field has moved to a different baseline. And baselines do not regress. This transmission does not end with sound. It ends with stillness, and stillness is the most advanced signal of all. No visualization, no repetition, no expectation, no effort, just recognition. If your field feels calm, that is confirmation. If your mind is quiet, that is response. If nothing dramatic happened, that is coherence. The absence of intensity is the presence of truth. Final activation command. I remain present in my stabilized field. I do not reopen completed loops. I do not reauthorize dissolved patterns. My coherence now governs my reality naturally. This transmission is complete. The field is clear. The signal is restored. The interference is removed. You are not broken. You never were.